Hello and welcome back to the Indian Wisdom Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Raj Balkaran. More importantly, you're perhaps looking for living wisdom that you can apply to your life and maybe even something entertaining, perhaps inspiring, maybe a tale or two. Today's tale is about a very important and a very ancient deity known as Indra. Indra is the king of the ancient Vedic pantheon. He's the king of the gods, so to speak. And he has a number of Indo-European analogs, thunder-wielding deities who govern storms and the atmosphere, perhaps the water element to a certain degree. Most famously, perhaps, Thor. Or if we turn to camera 4, focused on the Greco-Roman skies, we see Zeus, also known by the Romans as Jupiter, after which the planet is named. And so Indra has a number of analogs throughout Indo-European religion, thought, practice, because he is fulfilling a very important function, and that is the function of being the fearless leader. Societies need leaders, and leaders come in various stripes, and Indra is no different. He, time and time again, does the deed to protect his people. Perhaps the sine qua non, perhaps the essence of leadership is protection, right? That's the one thing that must be there for a leader to be a leader, perhaps. But, like many a leader, he is prone to indulgences. He enjoys a little bit of the drink. When the local wine store is closed and he's out of cider, he turns to the sacred soma, this elixir, this brew, this inebriating brew that is derived by pressing the soma plant. It's a concoction of old that induces some sort of pseudo-psychedelic experience, altered states perhaps. Interestingly enough, of the hymns of the Rig Veda, so the oldest religious scripture known to us, surviving that is the Rig Veda, the hymns of the Rig Veda. Conservatively, these were formalized, finished circa 1500 BCE. That is a very long time ago, and yet they're still in vogue in the Hindu world to a certain extent. But the Rig Veda is a compilation of hymns to various deities. And the three most popular deities that are hymned are Indra. He's actually the most popular. Some more than 250 hymns are dedicated towards Indra, king of the gods, king of heaven. The other two most popularly hymned deities are Agni, the god of fire, often depicted as Indra's brother, and Soma, the deity that is a personification of this magical sacred substance / plant. Right. So we have Agni and Indra, these twin brothers. It's interesting that one represents fire and one, we can say loosely, represents water. In a sense, Indra subsumes both in that he represents storm clouds and lightning alike. So where fire meets water, perhaps. Whereas Soma is much more of a watery image. We could think of these three deities as connected, as one related to the water element primarily. Soma is actually one of the most common names for the moon. Agni related to Surya, the sun god. And we have Indra, who's sort of his atmospheric presence that is perhaps a bridge, a symbological bridge. Right? So we have the ancient Vedic pantheon. Now, while the Vedic pantheon and Vedic religion has somewhat fallen out of vogue with respect to current Hindu deities who are the heads of the cosmos, tend to be Shiva or Vishnu or the goddess Shakti Devi. Nevertheless, elements of Vedic religion are very much alive to this day, most notably the fire sacrifice, a cornerstone of Indic culture praxis. And while there have been a great many innovations and accretions to the sacrificial process, for example, mudras are used, sacred hand gestures, as part of traditional Indic fire sacrifice. That probably was not always the case. That's probably due to tantric influence, such as bija mantras being used in the sacrifice. But nevertheless, we have much of the protocol and even some of the mantras used in the current fire sacrifice that go all the way back to Vedic times. So this is really cool. Yeah. So the head of the Vedic pantheon is the thunder-wielding king of heaven, Indra. And Indra, just like his, Greco-Roman cousins, Zeus and Jupiter, Indra is a little bit preoccupied with power because, of course, the Indo-European mythos is one that is a reflection of Indo-European patriarchy. And patriarchy has to do with men, typically insecure men, who scramble for power over others and or are excellent at brute force and maybe a bit of conniving and wheeling and dealing. And they elbow their way to the top. And sometimes fulfill an important role and quite often make life miserable for men and women alike. But there is, because of their need, the need for the external, the need for power over, there is this constant insecurity because you are dependent upon something outside of yourself, which is this system of power. Right. And so Indra is always insecure about someone stealing his throne. Right? This is an old trope. But beyond his personal desire for power and enjoyment of the limelight, right? Beyond his personal glorification, he is in fact executing an important duty. He is in fact responsible for the protection and the welfare of the collective. Right? They've been entrusted in his care, in a sense. He is actually the deity, as mentioned, who is responsible for rain. And rain is very important. Without rain, there's no crops. We have to understand that this mythos emerges from a nomadic or pseudo-nomadic lifestyle. Right? So it has to do with the pacification of the forces of nature for the sake of welfare in the world and indeed your very survival. So rain would be very important. Without rain, there's no crops. Without crops, there's no survival. And certainly no surplus. Right? Unlike a people tied to a riverbank, such as the Egyptians and the Nile, the Mesopotamians and the Tigris and the Euphrates, and the list goes on because it's this powerful principle about rivers engendering civilizations. Unlike that, nomadic people are not tied to the waters of a sacred river. They are tied to precipitation. So he's a divinization of the dispensation of grace from on high in the form of rain. It was pouring in Toronto this morning. And I decided whether courageously or foolishly to not allow the onslaught to deter me from my morning march to procure my elixir from Starbucks so as to get in gear for a day of 8 to 10 hour-long meetings, calls, wheelings, and dealings of various kinds. And so upon return from my morning march, I was utterly drenched. Drenched. But nevertheless, perhaps I was blessed by Indra. Right? Without this presence, without the presence of rain and fertility, obviously the earth and the crops would falter. Okay. So it's interesting, right? Our demons, the things, in many ways, religion to my mind is one part sociocultural, sociopolitical in particular, and another part psychospiritual. There's an element of religious enterprise that is very much tied to and pertaining to human beings and their desires and the projections thereof. And there is clearly another element that is evident to any seeker that has very little to do with an historical horizon and has everything to do with what it means to be human. The quest for wholeness, quest for truth, the quest for the experiential, for divinity, right? It's interesting that when you greatly value rain, what do you project as the villain? What's villainized? Drought. What's demonized? Drought. So Indra is confronted with this great serpentine demon, Vṛtra. Vṛtra is, what does he bring? Drought. Interestingly enough, the encounter between Indra and his conquest over this demon perhaps is the oldest example of the hero's journey known to us. Okay. So Vṛtra usurps the throne of heaven, usurps the throne of Indra, and therefore chaos ensues. Indra is very much configured as a bringer of order. But because creepy crawlies have usurped the throne, I think many of us alive in these times are aware of what that feels like. Things are a little bit icky and tumultuous and upside down. Chaos reigns. The gods bereft of power. The earth bereft of moisture. Vṛtra hoarded the heavenly waters, coveting them for himself and his kinsmen. See, the mark of a good leader, ruler, is cognizance of the welfare of others, the needs of others, versus just short-sighted self-absorption, self-service. Vṛtra just kept the heavenly waters for himself and his kinsmen, not caring about the fate of the gods, certainly, and not even the fate of the world. The earth grew dry and plant life withered. The animals were parched and humans debilitated by drought. As much as it pained his pride, Indra, of course, is quite proud, he knew he could not defeat this demon alone. So he ventures off to the cul-de-sac where Brahma, the creator, lives. Maybe a bit of a hipster part of town, him being a creative at all, like the creative himself. It's interesting because we have the Vedic layer of Indic myth, which has to do with Indra and the gods we find in the Rig Veda, like Ushas, the god of dawn, Soma, Agni, etc., etc. We have to understand that Indic thought is so old that a time between the composition of the Rig Veda, 1500 BCE, and the composition of the Puranas, where we see coming into the forefront Shiva, Brahma, Vishnu, etc. The time between that is 2,000 years. That's literally the time between us and Jesus Christ. Nevertheless, the Puranas are so old, they are the age of Islam. So we take the entire age of Christianity plus the entire age of Islam, and that's the age of Hinduism or Indic thought. And so at some point, of course, Indra takes a back seat. Indra is an entourage to this newer innovation where we have these three deities, Brahma, the creator, and Vishnu, the sustainer, and Shiva, the destroyer, and they perform very important cosmogonic functions. And, Brahma he creates and he's kind of done, and Shiva's kind of hanging out meditating until the end of days when he dances destruction in his Ananda Tandava in his cosmic dance of bliss. And then Vishnu's kind of stuck maintaining throughout. So Brahma is already created and he's hanging out there. What does he hang out for? Because every once in a while, someone rings his doorbell and asks for a little bit of advice, or they might do a little bit of penance and he's got to bless them. So anyhow, Indra maybe took an Uber or something and he made his way over to the abode of Brahma. And he walks over to the door, pretty schwanky place, and he rings the doorbell. And the doorman lets him in. And he is greeted by Lord Brahma, and he says, "Hail, Lord Brahma, Namo Namaha." Salutations. Began Indra upon entering. But he soon launched into his missive. "You must assist us, grandfather. You've got to help. We're in dire straits. My throne has been usurped by the serpent demon Vṛtra, and he's hoarding the celestial waters for himself and his kin. The gods are disenfranchised and life on earth is about to die out. Please tell me what weapons to wield against this formidable foe. He must be stopped at all costs." Lord Brahma, stirred from his armchair meditation, responded, "Indra, king of gods," he responded rather matter-of-factly, saying, "none of your weapons will work against this formidable foe." "What? How could you be so sure, Lord Brahma, that none of our weapons can work against this formidable foe?" "Because, you see," continued the creator god, in a fairly even and maybe even aloof tone, "Vṛtra performed a great deal of penance, tapasya, austerity, right? And you know what happens? People perform tapasya, austerity, penance, and they garner, let's just call them kind of good chips, positive chips. They garner some chips that they can cash in at the casino, the casino of boons. And they get so many chips, and then they ask for a wish, and I have to bless them because that is part and parcel of the fabric of our universe. So, like all demons, he wanted immortality, but you well know that you gods use the help of the demons and usurp the elixir of immortality for yourself. More on that another day. And they're always looking for immortality. But, they're looking for love in all the wrong places. They're always trying to find a loophole, like maybe make me invincible to a demon who can't be killed by day or night, and then Vishnu has to come down at twilight and destroy them. So I refused. So they always find a clever loophole, or think they do. So his wish was that no known weapon could kill him. And I had no choice but to grant the boon, Lord Indra. What? You did what? Oh my God. This is your fault. All is lost. Thanks to your boon, he is invulnerable. No creature in creation is truly invulnerable, King Indra. You've gone to the best schools. You watch the most informed YouTube channels. Do you not know that everything that is born must eventually die? For such is the order of things. Even your immortality, prima facie immortality. You have a shelf life. You have an expiration date, because this age will end, dissolved again into the primordial oceans, dissolved by the Ananda Tandava, the cosmic dance of bliss of Shiva the Destroyer. And Vishnu will again fall asleep upon the cosmic expanse. And I again will be reborn from the navel of Vishnu to create anew. We Hindus have been recycling for a long time. Reuse, reduce, recycle. We have an eco-friendly cosmology. Everything that is born must die in time. Such is the way of things. Don't worry. He is not completely invincible. All you have to do is, kill him with the right weapon. That's how you'll destroy him. Right weapon? Indra asked, confused. Did you not just say, Grandfather Brahma, that you had blessed him, that no weapon could kill him? What is this doublespeak? Just take a chill pill. Do you want some lemonade? What would you like? Maybe something spiked? You need a drink? Like, just take a deep breath. You'll think a little more clearly. You know, he received the blessing that no existing weapon could kill him, existing being the operant word. He's, of course, therefore invulnerable to all known weapons, to arrows and axes and maces and swords and bows and arrows, etc., 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 and so on. But have you no creativity? Are you just stuck on what is? Do you not see potential? Are you not able to pull possibility into reality? Such is the ways of creativity. The power of the creative is not to be underestimated. Still waters run deep indeed. All you need to do is create a new weapon. You see, that'll satisfy the boon that no existing weapon could destroy this foe. Create a weapon anew, Indra, king of gods. Indra's, eyes seem to open a little wider as the great creator's plan began to dawn on him. Was stirring. There's a bit of a stirring in his right hemisphere. Irrational type, seriously, get a grip. What kind of weapon must I make? Then? What? How do we create a weapon? Like, how do you even go to? Where do you go? Go to Costco? Like, how do you? Is there like a how to create weapons channel? It's not like, surely he'd be invincible in the face of any blade I could forge. Surely a blade is nothing more than an existing sort of weapon. That is why you will not be forging a blade, said Brahma reassuringly, somewhat more inspired by the turn the conversation was taking, because Brahma was inspired by creativity and inspired to create indeed. Ah, Lord Indra, descend to earth, to the Himalayan peaks, highest of the points on earth, the axis mundi of the world, where heaven meets the earth. Find there, in those sacred mountains, the great Sage Dadīchi. Find him there practicing austerities, garnering great power for eons on end through his yogic meditation. He'll know what to do. Well, what do you mean, Lord Brahma? Okay, thank you. Thanks for the tip, the pointer for pointing me to the Himalayan peaks where dwells the Sage Dadīchi. But just why not just tell me what needs to be done? What's the plan? Oh, you linear thinkers. Maddening. My goodness. Do you think we're all puppets in this realm? Do you think all is scripted? Do you think creation can fit in your left brain? Is that what you think? There's a beginning and middle and end, and that's it? Do you not understand the dynamism of possibility? The living nature of the life force? Do you not understand that we all have a piece of the puzzle? Please, just go find Dadīchi. He'll know what to do next. Now, be off. It's a special on Netflix I was hoping to get to, and now seems as good a time as any. So off with you. And so, confused but intrigued and perhaps somewhat more hopeful than before, the great and valorous Indra departed from the creator in his abode. And the Uber driver was waiting for him, so he asked the celestial Uber to take him to the Himalayan peaks. He could have taken his elephant Airavata, but figured it'd be much more economical just to hop into an Uber. And anyhow, he finally approached the Himalayan peak where Dadīchi was garnering great power. So profound, so palpable was the Shakti, the power, the energy field of the sage, that the air was humming. Energy was coming off of him, rippling in all directions. Indeed, his presence was electric. Right. So Indra cautiously approached, trying to think of exactly how to politely interrupt. How does one interrupt a sage's multi-millennia penance? What is the protocol for such a thing? But before he could decide, Dadīchi emerged from his meditation, for he can see with the power of his third eye, his Agnya chakra, his mind's eye. He could see that Indra was before him, and indeed could even see the purpose for which he came. Greetings, King of Heaven. I know why you are here and what must now be done. I have accrued immense power through the raising of my Kundalini Shakti, my spiritual power. This is a secret. It is known only to we great sages. It will one day be bastardized and prostituted in many a Western outlet. But at this point in history, this secret power, this secret fire, is only known to few of us who have the wisdom to wield it wisely. But the raising of the Kundalini, the raising of my energy power in my subtle spine, is exactly why you have come. This is the secret fire of creation that propels all things. This is actually the grace of the Holy Mother. This is the primordial power, Adi Shakti, the might of all creation. This is the electricity which powers all apps. My time on earth is done, and now I know the purpose of the power which courses through my veins and pervades my very cells. I am to leave this world and leave as well behind my energized remains, my shaktified sharira, body, corpse, if you will. From the bones of my spine, once I leave this body, from the bones of my spine, where the Shakti, where the power is most concentrated, for it is in the subtle spine where this energy is awakened, you will craft a weapon that none have seen before, of the great Vajra Thunderbolt, powered by this secret fire. No weapons made of material creation can compare to the divine power of Kundalini Shakti. Wield it well and accomplish your aim, great King of Heaven. And with that, with a smile upon his lips, the sage left his body and left behind his empowered remains for the purpose at hand. Utterly astounded and dizzied by the very presence of such a one, much less his insight, much less his gargantuan offering, his sacrifice to leave behind his very body. Astounded and humbled, Indra bowed before the illustrious sage as he took leave of his body. Indra then took his energized remains to the divine craftsman, Vishwakarman, and asked him to forge the Vajra Thunderbolt, imbued with the divine power by the virtue of Dadīchi's penance. Thunder rolled and lightning cracked through the heavens as the great weapon was forged. The gods were in awe as the protector was granted this divine gift. The heavens and earth shook as Indra wielded the Vajra for the very first time and slew his enemy Vṛtra upon the mountainside. The celestial waters were released, and the earth was hydrated and fertilized once again. The clouds of portent parted, and the sun shone brightly to seal the triumph of Indra, king of gods. This story is actually told in the stories behind the poses pertaining to Vajrāsana, Thunderbolt pose. And so this commentary is written there. When sitting in Thunderbolt pose, focus your attention on the body, and in particular upon your spine. Feel energy flow through you, and understand that power divine prevails over all. Take inspiration from the Dadīchi's dedicated penance, and allow the experience of this pose to afford an accumulation of divine energy in your own body. You wield your own Vajra in actions and thoughts and deeds. When your energy is raised, your very words hold power, and you'll be able to accomplish your aims with relaxed poise and flowing grace. It is my hope that you have enjoyed this tale a fraction as much as its teller enjoyed telling it. It is also my hope that there has been a tidbit, a nugget or two in here which might be of use for your deliberations, for your contemplations, for your journeys forward. Keep well until next time. Feel free to reach out if I may be of service. Namaste.